Hello and welcome back to another installment of NB Tech Reviews. So today I've been sent a controller by BISOZER. I'm kind of skeptical on the name. I don't really know how to pronounce it correctly. It's B-I-S-O-Z-E-R. And this was sent to me a couple days ago. I've just now been able to get to it. I'm going to unbox it and give you my first impressions. Now, I will say the packaging is a bit unusual. The color scheme kind of light blue, light red, almost pink over here, kind of a peach color, and then just a black line. And then the standard, like the generic writing, and then the weird font that says Force Switch. It's a bit weird. I mean, it kind of says not official, but hey, function over design. And I will also say that this design is it is a Ouya controller. It's kind of hard to deny it, but hey. Again, if it functions like it should and everything works great, again, design can sometimes go out the window, especially for the price point that this one is at. So let's go ahead and go over some of the features before I get into the box. So it says this is compatible with the Nintendo Switch and also Windows PC, and I'm assuming anything else that uses Bluetooth for controlling. I might try it with my phone. It's got built-in Bluetooth 3.0, motion sensor, real-time vibration motors, rechargeable battery, which is 350 milliamp hours, so you should get a good about 5-6 hours playtime before you need to charge it up again. It's also got, you can play while you're charging it. It's designed to be used multiples in one console, like some of the other wireless controllers. It's got the same gameplay buttons. It's got pretty much everything that you would see in a wireless Switch controller without the price. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So first thing I see is the controller in bubble wrap. Here. So go ahead and get the literature out here. Got the little instruction manual. We have got a charging cable. If I remember correctly, this should be USB-C. It is. This is a USB-C connector rather than a micro B, which a lot of other third-party controllers are. Then we have the controller itself. So first impressions on the build. I mean, it's a little bit big. It fits in the palms a bit more comfortably. The buttons are a bit loose. It feels kind of like those old style keyboards, the ones that really have that long distance travel. It feels good and squishy at the same time. It's a bit squishy. Shoulders are a bit clicky. It is a bit loud. So if you're kind of attuned to noises on controllers, that may get a little bit on your nerves, but ultimately, so far, it feels pretty good. These might have actually pressure controls for different styles of games, so we'll check that out. The buttons click in really nice. The A button feels a bit squishy, unfortunately. This feels clicky. The X, Y, and B buttons feel clicky. The A button feels squishy. Something about that just, I don't know. The plus and minus buttons are clicky. The D-pad's clicky. Feels all good. The only issues I'm having are the triggers and the A button. But I may be able to get over it depending on how much. Okay, with a lighter press I can kind of feel it, but if you press it down really hard you can feel squishy. It might tighten up. Maybe it just needs a bit of loosening up. All right, so that's first impressions on the controller. It feels, again, there's a bit of rattle, but it feels decent. Let's go ahead and get that out of the way. All right, so let's look at the user guide to go ahead and get it set up with the Nintendo Switch. So after a bit of working around with the controller, I managed to get it hooked up to the Switch. So we're going to try it out in some games, see how it works. So let's do some Sonic Mania. Standard platformer. I can test out both the left stick and the D-pad along with some of these buttons. All right, so we're in Titanic Monarch. Let's see how this, all right, so D-pads feel pretty good. It's a little bit harder to press than I normally would expect it to be, but so far, so good. The stick feels nice. It feels a little bit lighter weight than I was expecting it to feel. I guess something I'm feeling now is the sticks feel a tad bit loose. Not too much to the average person, but as someone who used a lot of controllers before, it does feel just a tad bit like it could have been tightened some more. Alright, so now let's move on to a bit of more intense game. Let's do some Mario Kart. Now this game is going to test to where this button squish is actually going to make much of a difference, because if it's kind of hard to keep it depressed, it might affect the gameplay. But again, good. We'll see. Now I will say that the way this controller feels, I'm not getting any fatigue in my hands. With the Joy-Cons, especially with how my Switch is set up, if I hold the Switch alone, it can get a bit hard on the palms and the muscles. This one feels a little bit more comfortable to hold. Alrighty, here we go. Now the triggers is where it's going to get a bit kind of unusual feel, because I'm a very heavy user of the drift. Having a big button there is kind of helpful. I will say the rumble is very intense. It's there to stay. Definitely a lot more intense than the Joy-Cons. I haven't tried the Pro controller, but it definitely feels a lot more intense than the regular Joy-Cons. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is yet to be seen, because it takes a lot more gameplay time to actually see how I like it. So far, I'm not having any issues. The A button's working well. Getting all the same kind of responsiveness I would expect out of a controller. And again, that rumble is just really there. The triggers are responding well. Again, even if they feel a little bit soft, for me personally, it's not that big of an issue. For some other people, it may be an issue if they're like really intense into their games. But if this is like a secondary, or just you need a couple of controllers for friends, like a game night, we're doing Mario Party together, or like Mario Kart Racing, this definitely feels like a good contender. And that rumble's right there. So if you really like rumble, this is definitely going to be a good controller for you, because they got some motors in here. And it's not HD rumble, it's not subtle, it's really there. Nevertheless, after one race, I could say for sure that I definitely use this pretty frequently. I probably would use my Power A controller a little bit more, but I like the fact that this is a rechargeable battery, because AA's are kind of, it's just not my thing. So that's a good thing. So now what we're going to try is, it says it has motion controls. So that's what I'm going to try next. It has gyroscopic sensors in here. It should be able to move like you would a Pro controller or Joy-Con. So we're going to try that out now. All right, so it is working. I'm going to say I'm not very good with tilt controls, but it is working. If it's as accurate as this Joy-Cons is yet to be seen, because the only time I use tilt controls is in Breath of the Wild, and maybe a couple other games that require some like tilt control aiming. Ooh. It doesn't feel like it's like you have to readjust it. It knows where its center is, and that's good, because in some motion controllers, like it can, I'm drifting the wrong way. It can drift off in the wrong direction, but it actually feels a bit sensitive. I may need to calibrate it some, because this controller hasn't been calibrated yet. It seems like I'm not sure. It works, but it's weird feeling. Maybe if I do it like, oh yeah, that's much better. There we go. This is the type of controls you want to use if you're that person who, when you're playing games and it doesn't have motion controls, you're going left and right with the controller. This is definitely the type of motion that you'd use. But yeah, everything seems to be working good. Gyro controls work good. Rumble's good. Sticks are good. Buttons work as they're supposed to. Back button. Oh yeah, that's the brake button. Don't worry if it. Okay, so something I noticed while I was playing a little bit of Enter the Gungeon is that there were some dead spots in the control sticks, unfortunately. It's not a huge issue if you don't play a lot of micro movement games like top-down shooters in general, or something that needs those tiny little movements. And I'll show you what I mean here in just a second. So, if we resume the game, you're looking here, I'm using the right thumbstick. I press up, it goes up. So if I begin to move left and right just a little bit, the game itself doesn't translate the movement until I go to a certain position. So again, if we go up a little bit and move it just a tiny, if we move a little bit left and right, the movement isn't translating until you move to a certain spot over. Same thing with bottom. If you move it just a little bit left and right, it doesn't really translate, which can mean a lot of difference in a micro movement game such as Enter the Gungeon, where you need to have that precision 360-degree movement. And it's also the same with the up and down. Now it's easier to see if we go to the controller settings. So if we go to, actually we need to go to settings, general, all the way down, go to calibrate, control sticks. So let's do the right one. So if we press up, it goes up. But again, if we're moving left and right, it doesn't quite pick up that movement until you go to a specific point. It's not true 360-degree movement on the stick. So until we get to that point. Now it also does it on the left. The left and the right. There's a little wiggle room, and the bottom. Now, we can also do the same thing on the left stick. Up, you can move a little bit before it actually starts moving on the screen. Go to the right, you can move a little bit more before it starts registering on the screen. And this actually has more travel to it than the right thumbstick. The bottom, it's still got a little bit of wiggle room before it actually begins moving, and on the left too. It's not a huge issue, but it is going to be noticeable to people who play games like top-down shooters and these micro-movement games. So for that, it's a bit of a negative, unfortunately. So overall, if you want a good secondary wireless controller or just want a wireless controller on the cheap, this is definitely a good package to go with. This has been NB Tech Reviews. Thank you for watching.